Freilich and Chanukah, everyone. We're sponsored in our tour through Masechtas Zevachim by Baruch Ian, Lili Nishmas Yaakov Chaim Ben Abba, Esther Bas Yona, Avram Ben Shmuel HaKoyin, and Lufer Shalema for Liba Bas Anya. We're sponsored by Mark Frankel in loving memory of Yisrael Tzvi Ben Chaim Yeshua Falek, by Berish Gesseman, Lufer Shalema for Shoshana Bas Adina Chana, for the spiritual, emotional, and physical protection for Yeshua Menachem Mendel Ben Bela Shendel Rivka. We're sponsored by A.B. Spry, and we're sponsored by Shalom Fogel, Lili Nishmas, Yaakov Zev Ben Yehuda Aryeh, Rivka Bas Yaakov Yosef, Tzivya Miriam Bas Gad, Yosef Ben Sion Ben Yaakov Zev, for Shalema for Moshe Aryeh Ben Miriam, and for good shidduch for Chayat Tzivya Bas Shoshana Gittel. We have in mind our Chavrei Daf, Aaron Ben Sarah, and Nachman Yaakov Ben Sarah. They should have a refuah shalema b'seich she'achelu Yisrael. Before we start, we should really appreciate what tonight is and what this day is, the final day of Hanukkah. It is a last stop of the year to do tshuva. The Mekubalim say that in the bracha that we say in Kriya Shema, L'kel Baruch Ni'imos Yiteinu, we say 8 praises of Hashem. Poyel Gevurais, that He does mighty things, which fits in very good with the Meiri, that the first day of Hanukkah is the Nitzachim. So it's Poyel Gevurais. Oiseh Chadashais, does new things. Bal Milchamais, Zorei Tzedakais, Matzmiach Yeshuais, Borei Refuos, Nora Sihilais, and the last one is Adonai Niflois, the Lord of Wonders. Right? So this is the 8th day of Hanukkah, is a day that we could ask Hashem for all kinds of wonders. We said that the letters of the dreidel, the Gimel Shin Nun Hey, stand for Gemar Shana. It's the conclusion of the year. There's an Imrei Noyim. The Heilige Chasidische Master, the Imrei Noyim, says that he has it the Kabbalah from his ancestors that it's very propitious to pray for Parnasa on this day. The same thing they say over from the Rebbe Hornesteipel, the same thing. They say over from Rebbe Lazar Milozhensk. The Rebbe Lazar Milozhensk says that there's 3 propitious times of the year to pray for materialistic success, to pray for Gashmias. And they are very interesting. Malava Malka, Shmini Atzeres, that's the Sima on the Mayim, that's obvious, that's Mayim is Gashmias, and Zois Chanukah. So this is a day where the tzinoros, the pipelines are open. And it's a day, as I said earlier in my talk between Mincha and Maariv, we know it's the last stop of the tshuva. And today we should take a look at our relationships, our Torah, our tzedakah, and our tefillah. We are holding, if you remember, we took that pasuk. There's a pasuk that gives a juxtaposition of all the karbanas. Zois HaTorah la'ayla la'mincha l'chatas u'l'ashim u'miluim u'l'zevach hashlamim. And we're learning what we learn out from the juxtaposition to each of these karbanas to the rest of the karbanas. So we are 2 lines from the top on Tzadik Ches Amud Aleph, 98a, Chatas. So it says in the pasuk Chatas, what do we learn out from the Chatas? Ma Chatas miskadeshes bibelua, just like Chatas. It impacts and it causes to become sanctified that which absorbs from it. Af kol, so also other karbanos, miskadeshes bibelua, they also penetrate and cause something that comes into contact with it to also become kodesh. What do we learn out from Oshim? Now the key over here is that a guilt offering is never a female, it's only a male. And the question is, I'll give you a scoop, the question is, if we have a carbon, and inside the carbon, after you slaughter it, is a fetus or a sac that has kidneys and the lobe of the liver, do they also have to be burnt on the Mizbeach? Do they also, because the kidneys and the lobe of the liver is the sacrificial portions. What about the kidneys and the lobe of the liver of the embryonic sac that's found inside? What's the din there? So the Gemara says, well, we'll learn out from Oshim, Ma Oshim, which is a male. So Ein Shvir V'Shil Yekadosh Bai, there's no fetus or embryonic sac that its portion should have to be offered on the altar. Af kol, even a female carbon, Ein Shvir V'Shil Yekadosh Bai, the fetus and the embryonic sac from inside, you don't offer their kidneys and lobe of liver on the altar. So because kasavar v'ladais kachim b'av yoisan heim kedashim, that they only become holy when they come out, not beforehand. And you'll say, but how could you learn out from an Ashim? An Ashim is a male, it doesn't have any fetus. And we also hold v'danin efsher mishi'i efsher. We learn out cases that are possible from a case that is not possible. Miluim, now when it says the Miluim, and we are joined by a lot of people now, just coming in progress, so we are 7 lines from the top of Daf Tzadik Ches Amud Aleph. Miluim, now this is talking about the 7 days, the inaugural 7 days where they offered special inaugural karbanos when they inaugurated the Mishkan in the Midbar. Ma miluin, ma'israyim b'sreifa. Only that which is left over is burnt. That means if there's nicer, it's burnt. But ve'ein balei chayim b'mosreim. The question is, what happens if, remember they traveled and they brought karbanos. They didn't want to have a chance that when they were walking with their carbon would step on a thorn and get a mum, and then they'll be left without a carbon. So sometimes they separated a second one, la'achrayis. La'achrayis means as a backup. Or sometimes they lost a carbon, they separated a second one, then they found the original one. Maybe these backups and these finds, maybe they have to be burnt. So the Gemara says, well, we learn it out from the inaugural karbanos, because by the inaugural karbanos, by the inaugural karbanos, there was no backup. The tzibur didn't need to make a backup, and they didn't lose any. So the Gemara says, just like by the inaugural karbanos, only Maisreim b'sreifa. Only if there was something left over after its time. No, sir, it has to be burnt. But ein balei chayim b'maisreim. But living animals that were back up or were found afterwards, those are not burnt because they didn't have that by the inaugural karbanos. Af kol. So by all other karbanos, only Mosreim b'sreifa, only if it's left after its time, But if it's a backup, or if it was found after they offered up a replacement, that's not burnt. Shlomim. What do we learn from shlamim to juxtaposition to the other karbanas? Ma shlamim mifaglin umispaglin. Just like shlamim, if I shech the shlamim, having in mind to eat it after its time, or to eat it or smoke it up after its time, it itself becomes pigel, and it's also mefagel that which comes with it. And those because a shlamim has with it libations and a meal offering. So afkol, so also any other carbon that has ancillary attachments, afkol, mifaglin or mispaglin. If you have a machshav of pigel, to eat it after its time, to smoke it up after its time, it becomes pigel, and also its attachments, its nesachim become pigel. Now this is the way we explained the need for, oh, welcome.
She couldn't get on the computer.
Okay, we could handle having you here.
Don't get the hopes up.
Okay.
There's an emergency.
You're here, that's okay. You made tonight? You're here.
Very hard for me to leave alone.
Okay.
Now, and we're holding Saba, 11 lines from the top of Tzadik Ches Amud Aleph. 11 lines from the top of Tzadik Ches Amud Aleph.
Okay.
B'masnisa Tana, in a brisa, it explains the need for each one in this big pasuk of juxtapositions differently. B'masnisa Tana Mishmei Rabbi Kiva Mincha. It says a meal offering. It comes to tell me Ma Mincha Miskadeshes Bibelua, that if a mincha touches another mincha, let's say one mincha was puzzle, and it touches another mincha, so it affects through penetration. Af kol miskadeshes biblo, or it could be a kosher mincha that touches a chulin wafer. It's mekadesh the chulin wafer by penetration. Now we learned that from chatas. So why does it have to teach it both from mincha and from chatas? So the Gemara says v'itztuch lemichtav mincha. V'etztuch lemichtav chatas. Diashmina mincha. Because you know why? It affects through penetration. Because the other mincha is very soft. Aidi derechig, or the other dough that it penetrates into, dough is very soft, so it's easy to penetrate. Aidi derechicha mivla. Aval chatas, which is meat, it's not so easy to penetrate. Eimaloi. On the other hand, v'iyash minon chatas, if it taught chatas, mishum dekorer, because chatas, meat, is a very strong taste. So therefore that penetrates deeply. Aval mincha, but a mincha which is bland, eimaloi, so therefore tzricha. Now, chatas, what do we learn out from the juxtaposition of chatas in this pasuk? Ma chatas eina ba ela min achulin. Chatas is only brought from chulin. It can't be brought from ma'aser sheni, because the davar shebechayva can only brought from chulin. So ma chatas eina ba ela min achulin, and it could only brought b'yayin, and it could only be done b'yadai hayamanis. It only can be done with the right hand. Af kol, so all other karbanas eina ba ela min achulin. It can only come from chulin, ubiyayim, and in the day, ubiyadei hayamanis, in the right hand. Says Gemara, I don't need you to learn out from chatas day. That's a general pasuk. First, the Gemara says chatas minalan. How do we know these rules by chatas? Amar Rav Chisda Amakra v'hikriv Aaron es para chatas asher loy. Aaron brings the para chatas which is his. It has to be from his own funds. Mishaloi, v'loy mishal tzibur. It can't be from communal funds. V'loy mishal meiser, and it can't be from meiser sheni. But the Gemara says that other karbanos have to be done in the day. I don't need to learn that out from Chattis. B'yayim tzavaysei nafka. The pasuk says a general statement: the day that was instructed that it has to be avodas in the day. Says Gemara Kedinas. No, we really don't learn that out from Chattis. We only learn out from Chattis that it has to come from Chulin. It just mentions this because this is another thing that's true by Chattis. B'yadei hayamanis. Do we need to learn out from Chattis that avodah has to be done with the right hand? That we know midirabba babachana nafka. This is a rule, a famous rule that we learned out from Rabba Babachana, who says, "The Amar Rabba Babachana Amar Ishlakish Kol Makom Shinema Etzba U Kahuna." Wherever it says Etzba or Kahuna, those two code words, Eina Eli Yamin. Says, well, you're right. That also Kedinasva. It just mentions it. But that's not what we learn out from Chattis. The main thing we learn out from Chattis is that Karbanis could only become from Chulin and not from Ma'aser Shein. V'hiba Yisema, Savala Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon holds that it's not enough to say Kayin. It has to say Etzba. The Amar Etzba loy boy Kahuna. If it says Etzba, it doesn't have to say Kahuna. But Kahuna, saying Kahuna is not enough. Boy Etzba. And therefore, we learn out from Chattis to the other Karbanos where it only says Kayin, and it doesn't say Etzba, that they also have to be done with the right hand. Osham. Ma Osham atzmois of mutarin, the bones of an Osham are permitted. You could make utensils out of the bone of an Osham. There's no Me'ila. Af kol atzmois of mutarin. So also the bones of other karbanos are mutter. Now, Amar Rava, pshitali, it's obvious to me that if you have, remember we said that if the blood of a chattis sprays on a beged, you have to wash it. It's obvious to me that if dam chattis lamata, the dam oila lamala, that if the dam chattis is below and the dam of the oila sprays on top of it, now the dam of the oila would not have to be washed. But if the dam chattis sprayed on the bottom and the dam oila is on top of it, so the dam chattis was absorbed, then that's for sure toin kibbutz. However, boy Rav, the other way around, dam oila lamata, if the blood of the oila is below, the dam chattis lamala, and the dam of the chattis is above it. Now, the dam of the chattis is also touching the beged, but it's not absorbed in the beged because the oila is blocking it. So, mahu, is the washing enough mishum nageyahu because it's touching the beged, v'ha nageya, and this is touching the beged, oidilma mishum beluahu, it has to be absorbed. Bala, this was not absorbed because it's blocked by the oila. Hadar pashta, you're right. The key is absorption. And if the oila is on the bottom and the chattis blood is on the top, so the chattis blood is not absorbed, so hadar pashta, the ain't tunin kibbutz. Now, remember we kept on saying, what do we do if the beged was taken outside and it was tameh? So we said you have to tear it in order to bring it inside, right? So I had the kasha in my mind, why do we have to tear it? Why aren't we toivel it outside? That was bothering me all the time. And here is the answer. Because you can't be toivel it while it has the blood, because the blood is a chatzitza. The blood is an interposition. And that's what the Gemara tells us over here. Amar Rava pshitali dam al bigdai. If there's blood on his beged, chaytzis. You can't anytime. You can't be toivel a beged that has blood, except if you're a butcher. You see, there's a din in chatzitza that it's only a chatzitza if you mind it being there. A butcher who always is bloody, that's just the way it is. V'im tabachu, if he's a butcher, ain't a chaytzitz. Revav al bigdai, if there's grease on his garment, chaytzitz. However, v'im moicher revavu, but if he sells grease, ain't a chaytzitz, because he always has. Now the question is, what about By Rava, Damu Ravav al Bigda. If he has blood and grease, what's the din? So the Gemara says, what do you mean, what's the din? Im tabachu, if he's a butcher, yeah, but it should be a chatzitza because of the grease. Tefik mishum Ravav. V'hi moicher Ravavu, and if he sells grease but he doesn't have blood, tefik mishum dam. Says the Gemara, no, the question is he's a multitasker. He sells grease and he's a sheikhet. Like tzricha de avid hava, he does both. So you'll say, well, then he's used to both. It shouldn't be a chatzitza, but maybe not. Maybe even so. Achada loy kapid. On one, he's not makbid. Atarte, that he should look like a royal Slav, blood and grease, that he is kapid. Oidilma atarte nami loy kapid. He's used to grease. He's used to blood. It's not a chatzitza. Says, take tishbi atar. It's kushis v'bayis.
Maybe he's a mechanic.
Hanu lach dam chatas. So in the case of a mechanic, it's a good thing. In the case of a mechanic, an oil stain would not be a chatzitza because he's used to an oil stain. You know, if he's marshal, then bourbon would not be a chatzitza because he's used to bourbon.
Get the oil out of my clothes.
Now,
Rabbi, what's the deal are we talking about here regarding a chatzitza? Who's being told about what?
you tovel the beged that became tummy. Now, you know, before we start the new parak, I should welcome everybody in, and I think 29 Zoomers, which would have been 30, but Saba's here, I think for a Hanukkah night, where everybody is partied or partied out, is a pretty good thing. And we have back Mark Frankel, who's been playing hooky, and Dr. Guy, and Marshall Castle, who's just been playing Stamazoi, Yaakov Warman, Irving Fishbaum, Menachem Umansky, Mel Zachter, Shimon Klein, Eddie Chazan, Captain Hook, Nachman Chapler, Israel Fisher, Michael, Shalom Fogel, Shelley Zeitlin, Verish Gesseman, Barry Cement, Dr. Block, Gedalia Engel, Rabbi Kranz, Stephen Holtzman, Moshe Lehman, Avram Rezepkowitz, Yeshua Shmuel Eisenberg, Abe Arbach, Naftali Jablin, Elio Yaffe, Richard Rosenzweig, good to see you, Richard. David Helfgott here in Shul. We have Chaim Kramer, Michael Avram Chavin. We have Saba, and we have Ruvain Shannon. And just in time for an honorable mention, we have Vogel, Danny Vogel, who I want to remind everybody tomorrow night, second minyan is back at 7:45. Okay, says the new Mishnah. Tful Yaim. I did. Tful Yaim. A person that touched the sherets and went to the mikveh, but he still has residual tumah until nightfall. Tful Yaim u'b'chusik kippurim. Or somebody that counted his 7 days, like a Zav, but he has residual tumah until he brings his carbon on the 8th day. Einon cholkin bekachim lechol erev. Since they are not roy yet, because either he's still a tful yaim, or he didn't bring, or he's a mechusik kippurim, he cannot take kachim to eat it in the evening when he'll be ready to eat it. Oinen, a person that lost a relative on the day that he lost a relative, nogeya, he could touch kachim, but ve'ena makiv, unless he's a kohen gadol, he can't do the akrava. And now we bring in our 30th Zoomer with Ilya Shutman. Ve'ena chaylik lechol erev, the einin doesn't get a portion to eat it that evening. Bali mumin, one that has a blemish, which we're learning in the Mishnah Yomis and Bechayris, Bein Bali Mumim Oivim, whether it's a passing blemish, Bein Bali Mumim Kavuin, or a permanent blemish, even though he can't do the Avodah, Cholkin, he does get a portion, V'oichlin, and he could eat it, Avaloi Makrivin, but he can't do Akrava. Kol she'ena roya la'avodah, whoever cannot do the temple service, and the Gemara is going to say, but what do you mean? We just said that a Baal Mum could do it. The Gemara will ask that question. Right? The Baal Mum can't do the Avodah does get, but here it says a blanket statement, Kol she'eino ro'eh la'avodah, whoever is not fit to do the temple service, Einoi chaylik b'basar, he doesn't get a portion of the meat. V'kol she'ein lo b'basar, and if you don't get a portion of the meat, ein lo b'oros, you don't get the hides either. Now, afilu tamei b'shas zrika, even if he was tamei at the time when the sprinkling of the blood was done, b'shas zrika is tamei v'tar b'shas hekter chalavim, but he was tar already when they smoked up the sacrificial portions, einoi chaylik b'basar, because it depends on if he was fit at the time of the sprinkling. Shenema hamakriv es dama shlomim, the one who offers the blood, who does the zrika v'esachelev mibnei Aaron, and the sacrificial portions, lo yisiyah shoika yamin lamana, he will get the right shank as a portion. And therefore, since he wasn't fit at the time of the sprinkling, he doesn't get a chelik in the basar. Now, Rabbi say, normally I would tell you sayonara, but I'm springing this upon you. We're going to learn two blat tonight. The reason why we're going to learn two blat tonight is because this Tuesday, Be'ezus Hashem, I'm having a procedure. I have a large prostate, and it's been giving me a lot of aggravation. And I'm doing a procedure. It's called an embolization of the prostate, where what they do is they put something in through my wrist, and then they go and they cut off some of the blood supply to the prostate with the hope of shrinking it and thereby causing a lot more comfort. I have prostate, it's touching the bladder, that's already, a little bit invading by the colon. So the idea is to shrink the prostate would give me a lot of relief. So I'm doing that hopefully with Hashem on Tuesday. So first of all, I'm going to ask everybody to daven for me. Moshe Meir ben Esther Fradel. It should go good. The doctor told me, doctor is a frum man, Aaron Fishman from Mount Sinai. He told me that it is conceivable that I might be able to give shir on Tuesday. But I don't want to take a chance. You know what I mean? Daf Yomi is like Mark says, you never take a chance. You try to never miss. Like so, well, Mark doesn't miss. He just listens to it, right, Mark? You don't miss. Right? That's really wondrous. It's admirable. So anyway, we're going to now just turn the channel and learn another blot.